What we've also done is we've got moving loop EM studies underway right now to redefine these discrete anomalies that we've done, and we've added additional licenses. So as we move forward onto the rare earths, which I think we're on the cusp right now of great discoveries. We've identified, or historically there's been identified, and it's one of the main reasons the company pegged these projects, was that there were reefs associated with the explorers that were previously before us. BHP were looking for the diamonds in the area within obviously the trapments in the alluvials. They've discovered rare earths or monazite as well as other heavy mineral sands. So we took that upon ourselves and basically started exploring and understanding what could be driving these things. So now we've identified clay-hosted reefs, and we believe they're up to depths of 40 meters potential, and we believe they're going to be ionic, associated with clays. We've also got monazite sands within the alluvial terraces, where we've drilled recently up at the Wheellow alluvials. So if you look into the top left of your screen there, the Wheellow alluvials areas and those red dots, they're the ones we've drilled. Look, we've identified areas of up to 60 meters there, and that's at the end of hole. So there's still way to go. And obviously we're looking for the primary sources of these rare earths, which could be in the carbonatites. We undertook reconnaissance drilling in November, December last year, and obviously to test some of these areas. Tower area was chosen as the one to test. Based on that, it was the easiest to get to. There was tracks already in the area. Drill rigs could get there without actually having to create a track. So we're well on the way. We've done 39 holes there, over 1,000 meters to test this area. And we're waiting for these assay results, and which we expect very soon. So on the basement sulfide side, Mount Clair is a new frontier, I guess, in this. And what we're looking for here is giant orthomagmatic sulfides. This area is it is basically entirely unexplored for these types of mineral systems historically, but these new frontiers, as you know, with Chalice, looking at Julimar, these are the opportunities for companies like ourselves. So what we've identified here is obviously some late time EM conductors. These conductors, which you can see on the image on your screen, are pulled into clusters. And if you look at that central sort of cluster corridor there from Red Valley across to North Bull Badger, there's basically major magnetic linear trends that flow that way. There's structural corridors that flow that way. So that gives us a lot more, I guess, confidence in what we're looking at here. They're definitely discrete, they're isolated, they're sitting on magnetic lineaments where we want them to be. And we've also got some stream geochemistry coming from these areas, which is actually showing us elevated basement metals, and basically nickel, copper, cobalt, chromite. They're all there in the elevated pathway. So what we've done is we've been able to get our permitting in place for majority of this. K13 at the top, we're still waiting for, but we've actually undertaken, or we're currently in the process of doing our moving loop EM survey, and obviously we'll be looking at future drilling in this. So just to give you a little bit more of an idea of how this all sort of fits together. If you look at the inlay that just come up, then it's basically Cirrus Resources Nova Bollinger EM conductor when they first discovered this. Just for a comparison, I'll show you on the next slide something a bit better, but that's exactly the same scale as what you see our image is. So just to bring it forward a bit further and give you a bit more of an info on this, the Nova Bollinger EM conductor is sitting in the middle of the screen there. You can see there's a scale of 1 kilometre on that. These contour lines that you see in the background, they are magnetic contours. And what you see there is where this conductor is sitting right inside a magnetic lineaments. Okay. Now the top line here of images, they are our reduced poles magnetics, and the bottom is our EM conductors. Okay, so this is basically our imaging. And what we see here, if you start to look at the numbers on the dots and where we're getting our hotspots, our reds in our EM conductors, they are correlating to the edges or on top of where we're getting our magnetics highs as well. And in between these, we are also seeing a lot of magnetic lows. Now, these images, and not to get too technical with you, give us all the confidence. These are our priority targets, and this gives us a great confidence that what we're looking at here are sulfides at basement. They are not, shales or graphites, and we are looking at proper basements. So, look, this conductor from Nova led to the discovery of it. So we have umpteen numbers of these, which are all discrete, all sitting in very, very opportunity sort of driven geology. So we have firm belief that we are going to find something here. So what does it look like for Mount Clair in the next 12 months? Over the rare earths where we're looking, Tower Hill, we've got the clay hosted ionics assays pending, and hopefully will lead to a discovery. We're very confident that we're going to find something here. That will then drive obviously some resource drilling there, and we'll looking at permitting and getting stuck into some of these other prospective areas which we've identified. We need to build a few tracks and get some infrastructure in place to get to them, but they are there. So we'll be looking forward to actually increasing our prospect or our drilling and projects here. Over the regional area, obviously we've got a lot more land now. We have to still get on the ground and truce this and basically get out there and do some reconnaissance mapping and geochem assessments, find some more. On our basement sulfides, our nickel copper PGE potential here, our southern clusters, as explained, with the Bull Badger, Northern Bull Badger, Millie. Those areas we've just finished permitting. We're undertaking moving loop right now. We'll be looking to drill those mid-year, and then obviously have discoveries within that third quarter, fourth quarter of this year. Look, K13, the cluster there in the northern part, we have to go a heritage survey there, and then obviously some permitting under the Section 18 Act. And then we'll look at basically doing the same system that what we're doing out there. We'll have it proved by then that we are actually onto things, there, what sulfides they are. That's we don't know. Fingers crossed they're the right sulfides. We believe they could be. So we'll obviously undertake a lot of this work collectively and to push these programs, advance them further. Then we have the heavy mineral sands, which is probably one of the easiest ones. It's the most accessible. It's going to be a lot easier to track these ones faster. We have assays pending at the moment, and obviously we'll get those assays, which are just geochemical assays. Then we'll basically do some heavy mineral sand separation tests and understand the systems in the mineralogy behind them. And then obviously we'll have a discovery and look to resource drill that and look at the other geochem there. So a lot of opportunities here for the shareholders. We're not a one-track pony. We've actually got a lot of things, opportunities here with Mount Clair. So now we look at Delgaranga. Delgaranga, it's a tantalum mine. It's basically a lot of pegmatite swarms here. It was originally mined in, I believe, in the 90s by Tungsten Australia. Where you can see on that image at the top left there's some yellow. They're the historical mining area with some scrapes and pits and basically a processing plant and some tailings there. all the opportunity. We've pegged a lot further land here. We've identified more pegmatites and exploration targets. So the opportunity here is basically to take what we know and the resource that we're looking at, and then start to advance that and step out and get something that's quite substantial, and company making again. It's just another string to our bow. Look, this area is prospective for obviously tantalum, lithium, niobium, tin and rubidium. In 2017, we identified some massive rubidium there, very, very high levels of rubidium, greater than 5,000 ppm, which is just, super fantastic for the company. So now, as we look into this and we're going into the future, we've had a look at the data. We've correlated all the historical data on this area, and we've come up with 1.5 to 3 million tonne exploration target. With basically, you can see there the numbers of the rubidium, lithium, niobium, tantalum, tin, and tungsten. As a basket, that's a very high price basket into the market at today's current rates. If you look to the left, to the right-hand side of here, we can see where the exploration targets. These images here have been in the press releases, so you will see that the gold area there is basically what that target is designed on. Reflecting back, all those green areas on this previous slide, these all could have potential to have this as well. So when you start talking about that 1.5 to 3 million sort of tonnage, it could be quite substantially much larger. These systems are there. That's basically, you've got to get in and give it a go and drill them out. And that's what we intend to do very soon. So looking forward here, what we intend to be undertaking over the next 12 months is, obviously we're permitted. We've just got our permits in, so we'll be undertaking drilling very, very soon. Then obviously we'll hopefully have the resource, so exploration target, converted into a resource here by third quarter, and then we'll undertake MET work, understand this a bit better, and then look at a preliminary economic assessment and look for some partnership off-takers, all those sort of things, to line those up so that this can actually be commercialized at some point in time. Also, we have the regional or new exploration areas where we intend to identify, improve these up and take them through the exploration chain into basically get them into resources or potential resources as satellite pits, for a central, facility. Just to talk a little bit about the markets, everyone knows about the lithium market, the compound annual growth rates there, basically 19%, up until 2027 is what they're predicting. When you start to look at the rubidium, tantalum, niobium, they're all growing as well. Not at the same rate, but they're all growing. And, those markets are very small, but they also, the opportunity to get into those markets, there's not a great deal of supply around. So that is our opportunity. That's where we see it. It is a niche market, but that's why we'll be looking at off-takes and partnerships later on, once we've proven that we do have a resource that is viable. Okay, so on to the last project, and bear with me. Okay, so we're getting there. Rand. This rock sample that you see on your screen here, this is actually an 80 grammer of gold, so it's quite nice. And you would have seen very recently, we actually undertook some additional soil work to infill and expand our soil survey that we did late last year. And what we've been able to identify is some new targets and refine these targets into more discrete things. Look, the gold side of this, and I guess to put this into context, intrusive related gold systems are, they are larger systems. It takes time to actually try to refine these down and actually get to the nuts and bolts of where these things stick and where the mineralization, the main driver for it. We know, with a lot of the old mines that were in the area, they're very high grade gold. 265 grams a tonne upgrades were in the old historical records. We've got a lot of rocks, which are over 20 grams there. So we know there's gold in the systems. What we're looking for is the systems that are feeding these gold, that are bigger, more robust, And to take into account, these systems being so big, it takes a lot of exploration, a lot of time. So when we look at this and say, you have a look at what happened at Kingston or even De Grey's recently, it took them 5 to 7 years to actually have the major hit or the major discovery of these systems, of the main system. There's always smoke there, which we've got here. So, it's going to take us time to prove these things up, but we're going to progress it systematically. Again, we're not going to throw money away. We're going to actually do it systematically, do the right thing. So in the image at the bottom here, just to show you a little bit more where the Bulgandri goldfield sits, and that's what the top image is really showing you. That's the Bulgandri area, where that system continues along. Look, we've got a lot of acreage still to investigate and look further, but we've started in the spot where we know gold is coming out of the ground already. So right now we're completing ground geophysics, IP work, and then obviously we'll be looking to do reconnaissance drilling over this in the near future. But what's exciting again, or puts another string onto this bow, is that we have identified, that we do have ionic rare earths on these projects as well. There's a lot of intrusives in the area, and what we found is when we did some air core work over top of our magnetic bullseyes, that we actually intersected some high grade rare earths within the clay horizons, within the regolith saprolites. So we took this and we actually analysed it, and we took it a bit further, and we sort of identified, look, these are weakly acid bound, ionic in its nature, and now we've basically got the potential here to expand on this. We then undertook a identification process where we identified other blocks of land within the area to expand this area, and understand that we can try to eliminate areas where these things won't occur and where they will occur. So what we've done is we've pegged quite over 2,000 square kilometers of land here, which we intend to explore for these regolith hosted rare earths. We've just been granted this, so as we go into what we're actually going to undertake this year, you can see that we've just been granted these, so permitting and getting in there to actually do the air core drilling along the road verges and in the crown land areas is one of the things that we'll be initiating at the front. We obviously have some met test work being undertaken right now on the samples that we had from the previous bullseye drilling. And then obviously on getting all positive of that, we'll start to do some infill drilling and expand on this and try to create a resource and see how viable these ionic rare earths are over at the Rand area. We also have the intrusive related systems there with the gold. We are going to continue along that process. We've got the IP geophysics undertaken right now. We'll be looking at drilling, and obviously the assays will then form into potentially discovery later in this year. We also have other areas where we need to get into and undertake exploration as well. There's a lot of tin there. There's a lot of tungsten potential. These are the areas and these are the targets that we're going to actually be proving up during the course of this year as well. So I guess in summary, and just to sort of finish up before we start hitting into the questions, all our projects are 100% owned. We've got a clear direction, which is correlating to basically the way the world is developing now. All the metals that we're looking for are the metals of demand going into the next 10, 20, 30 years. Our expenditure that we have, 90% of it goes into the ground. We have very low overheads, and we're focused on exploration and proving these things up for our shareholders. We've had a very highly successful maiden year at Mount Clair and also at Rand. We've identified rare earths. We've identified they've been ionic. We're on the verge of the cusp of Mount Clair to be able to say that these rare earths are in the regolith and they're ionic. We're also looking at the basement sulfide potentials and heavy mineral sands. There's a lot of information and a lot of opportunity, I guess, for our shareholders in this thing. We're not just a one-trick pony. We're not just focusing on the one thing. So, our work programs for this year are basically, from my perspective, are very, very company defining. We're going to be taking a lot of these opportunities that we do have and actually proving them, or we're only one drill hole away from being that next Chalice, or being that next De Greys, or being that next ionic rare earths, or these are the sort of things that we're playing with. So if you bring those three companies all in together, that's basically what we're looking at. That's the opportunity that the shareholders have, and that's the opportunity that we have. And for our geology team, that's the opportunity that we're looking at as well. So, I think I'll probably just leave it at that for now, and I'll look to take some questions.
Thanks, Mark. That was excellent, actually. And I love the one, you're not just a one trick pony. A lot of potential there with all those projects, and that was a really good overview. So there's a few questions here that's come through from David Seeley. So I'm just going to start. If you want to go back to the Mount Clair slides, you might want to just outline some, or answer some of these questions around what he's asking. So I might leave the first one because I'll come back to that and you can summarize it. But the second question that David's asked is, what is the reasonable extent, surface area of the likely sand deposition places at Mount Clair? The terraces are broad, but is it sensible to view it all as a resource base?
Right, okay, yep, good. Let me just show you, not this one, but on here. Okay, if you look at I guess, from our ground exploration that we've undertaken, there's obviously a lot of regolith development. Like, this is an old part of the country, old rocks. It's all metamorphosed below. And what we've got is basically a regolith development above. Okay, some of that development is, it's in excess of 40 meters. To consider that it is going to be 40 meters all that way, no, obviously, especially with rare earths, you're not going to get the concentration of the rare earths all the way through the profile. The way the ionic clays go is usually you get a depletion at the top, and then you get basically a bigger concentration in the middle to the bottom zone. So obviously there's a strip ratio effect that comes into this. I know other companies out there are saying other things with their strip ratios. They're talking about 5-to-1 sort of strip ratios. It comes into a grade control matter as well, and these are all things that will come out later as we look, I guess, say, to the extent nature of this. There's two environments within this. There's basically, you've got your deposital environments, which are your catchments and the lower part, where all the basically erosional material is coming from the elevated environments, where we've got these regolith rare earths sitting. Okay, so where the development of the regolith is over the basement, that's old country. Yep, that's been eroded down now into the valleys. So all that mineralization that's sitting there has been washed away. The clays have gone further, and the mineral sands are sitting there. They're slower to move. It takes more basically water energy to transfer them down. So what we're looking at is those two environments. So we're at the top of the ridges, and that we're getting these regoliths. That's where we're looking at basically, looking at the ionic, not rare earths. Yep, where we're going down the streams, where we're getting the alluvials, and as you can see by the sort of, and I wish I had a better image there for you, but you can sort of see that within those alluvial areas, they're quite traversed, they're quite big. There's a massive build-up there. We did holes there, which we pulled the pin at 60 meters. Basically, we're still in alluvials. So these systems are big. They're old. So the extent is unknown. I'm not going to throw a number out there right at the moment, but What we will identify from, I believe, from the tower, drilling that we've done is the controls that are in there, where we sit in that regolith, how much we've got, and we'll go from that.
Thanks. Look, and just if you've got questions and I don't get to all of them, I'll get Mark to email you with some answers if we can't address all of them. So just on the next project, Delgaranga, rubidium is a very niche material, valuable but a skinny, opaque market. There's excitement in the area about rubidium, but is the market able to sustain or interested in supporting new projects? And do you think other elements at Delgaranga are likely to be in a commercial grade, especially lithium, which is so hot?
Yeah, look, good question. Obviously, I'll get to the slide where we're looking at an exploration target. Look, I think when you look at Delgaranga, and you're right, rubidium is a niche market. It's a small market, but it's the same as, say, look at there's a lot of other little niche markets there. The critical thing is the use of rubidium, going and driving into the future. Demand is going to increase. By how much, we don't know. It's still probably going to be a small amount, but it's all going to come down to the grades and the quality and what you produce at the end of the day. If it's a better market, well, it's a better product than what others have got, then you're going to be able to do it. Okay, and it comes down to the commercialization of it. Can we dig it out of the ground cheaper than others, and obviously be in that lower cost curve. So that's where we're looking, and obviously we don't. Well, I guess we don't believe Delgaranga is a rubidium, full-on rubidium mine. It is a basket case. Okay, it's basically a basket of rubidium, lithium, niobium, tantalum, tin, and tungsten. They're all in there together. Okay, we're going to be mining the whole thing out. So when you add all those values up, is it going to be an economically viable thing? Yes. To me, it's a no-brainer. Will we have a lithium mine by itself? I doubt it. We're not going to have the same levels as what others have, or we haven't seen those levels yet. But we do have a lithium there. It is going to be a credit. Okay, tantalum, it is built on tantalum, this mines. So we know that's there. We know there's tin. We know there's tungsten. Niobium is same. They're all going to be credits to whatever market we sell into. And I think that's the key behind Delgaranga. It's not going to be just one single, identity.
Thanks, Mark. And just on the next project at Rand, the question is it clear that the historic gold deposits are from intrusion and not, for example, some sort of turbidite sedimentation?
Yeah, look, again, these systems are all associated along structures. They're fluid flows that have happened between them. I don't believe, and from what we've seen within the core that we have done, with the reconnaissance drilling that we have, and even when you're looking at the geochemistry of this, it does smell of intrusive related. If you look at the maps, and I'll show you that again, you start to look at the maps there, the bottom one specifically, where you start to get pink are basically more associated with intrusive, they're magnetic highs. There's a lot more intrusives than we first realized there. And what we've it's basically finding which ones of those were the ones that were carrying the major elements that we're looking for, which ones are carrying the gold. The pathways of that gold are obviously with the structures, and that's what we've seen, and that's what's been outcropping for the historical miners. So, the mother lode or the system, the main parts of the systems don't seem to be the ones that are outcropping. They're going to be hidden somewhere within this system, and that's basically the clues that's leading us, is that's what's driving us to look for those sources. And there's a lot of cover there to the southern or southwest of where the Bulgandri goldfield is. There's a lot of cover going down there, and there's major shear systems there. So we're very confident that there is intrusive related systems there for sure.
Great. And just one more, because we're running out of time. Just on ionic rare earths, is initial test work indicating that we have ionic clay hosted rare earths? Australian deposits haven't so far proven to be definitively of that type that China have or IXR has.
Yeah, look, I guess again, it depends on how you interpret what you're saying with ionic. Now, ionic is weakly bound. It basically means you can pour a mildly acid, mildly alkaline solution, soapy water basically on these things, and the elements will release. Okay, so they're loosely bound with the clays. Now, what we've been able to identify at Rand, okay, right now is that, yes, by using very, very weak acid, and I mean vinegar basically, is that we can extract these things, okay? What comes next is how you extract that from the vinegar, into, or the mild acid, into basically the elements and the oxides that we want to get. That's the hard part. So obviously we try to use an alkaline, which is a better or an easier process to do. So that test work is all going to be done. Is it ionic? Yeah, it is ionic. There's no doubt about that. But if you want to term it like the clays in China, the way they do it, that's a different, that's harder to sort of like interpret, because there's not much data available from them. Well, for one, but when you talk about, say, some of the other groups that are doing this test work or are a bit more advanced than where we are, yeah, look, where they've started is basically where we're sitting now, is to say, look, the reactions are the same. Everything could be a little bit different because of the genesis, I guess, of the original host rocks, what's driving these things. But what we're finding is that these things are ionic in their nature, and it's now comes down to how reliable that is to be able to extract that, to take that elements into the clay, out. And that's the key, I guess, behind all ionic. You've got to look at it as a bit different to say, you're not going to have super high grades. It's a heap leach sort of process. I know one group is looking at doing heap leaching, so that leaching is more holding times. It's a cheaper alternative, I guess, of getting those elements rather than looking at the hard rock side. So that's the opportunity, I think, for us shareholders right now.
Brilliant. And some feedback for you, Mark, just from one of our listeners and watchers today. Thank you. And also appreciation for the methodical and thorough approach you are taking to our exploration activities. Keep up the good work.
Thank you, Mum.
All right. Thanks, everyone. That's a wrap. And if you have any other questions, just feel free to reach out to Mark and the team. I'm sure that they'll be happy to get back to you. Thanks, guys.